My scripts are always really simple and sparse because I'm imagining what it looks like, and I don't go into too much detail describing it because I know I'm going to direct it, so just enough to give the people I'm working with an idea. What I like about filmmaking is telling the story through visuals. I've never been as interested in dialogue-driven scenes. The part that I always enjoy putting the music together. Usually when I'm writing the script, I listen to music and it kind of sets the atmosphere and the feeling that the movie will end up having. And a lot of the music I listen to when I'm writing ends up being in the movie. I said that the story and the actors are the most important part.
Born in New York City on May 14, 1971, Sofia Coppola was the youngest child of documentarian Eleanor and filmmaker Francis Ford Coppola. Sofia was part of the industry from the age of 1, acting in such films as The Godfather, Peggy Sue Got Married, and Star Wars The Phantom Menace. When acting proved to be less rewarding than she'd hoped, she turned her attention to filmmaking. She made her feature film directorial debut with The Virgin Suicides in 1999, which was praised by the jury at Sundance and released to wide critical acclaim. Coppola's sophomore effort, and perhaps best film, Lost in Translation, earned Coppola the Academy Award for her original screenplay and 3 Golden Globe Awards, including Best Picture. Her win for the Best Original Screenplay in 2003 made her a third-generation Oscar winner. Unsure of how to follow up this masterpiece, her third film, the biopic Marie Antoinette, debuted at the 2006 Cannes Film Festival, where it received a standing ovation as well as boos from the audience. The film's anachronistic use of clothing and music left audiences confused, but a cult following has formed around the highly stylized and gorgeous film. Coppola kept it simple for her fourth effort, 2010 Somewhere, which won the prestigious Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival. Somewhere focuses on a disaffected Hollywood bad boy who is snapped out of a bitter malaise by an unexpected visit from his daughter. Coppola's next effort, 2013's The Bling Ring, was based on the true exploits of a group of spoiled California teens who burgled celebrities' homes and made off with millions in cash and merchandise. Bling Ring was the last film of acclaimed cinematographer Harris Savides, who passed away during post-production. Bling Ring makes excellent use of Savides' keen eye for composition and storytelling with setting, and it was a definite high note for the end of a storied career. Coppola's next project, 2015's A Very Murray Christmas, was a playfully satirical take on Hollywood variety shows. It stars the eponymous Bill Murray, as well as a star-studded cast, which juxtaposes nicely with the dark and dreary setting. Coppola then turned her attention to The Beguiled in 2017, and remade the 1971 Southern Gothic film, originally starring Clint Eastwood. The film premiered at the 2017 Cannes Film Festival, where Coppola became the second woman to win the Best Director award. She's currently working on a yet-to-be-released film, On the Rocks, starring Rashida Jones and frequent collaborator Bill Murray, which, given the cast and director involved, should be another competently made and critically acclaimed film.
And welcome back to another Film Hooligans. I'm your host, Jon Dunning, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Jason Alt.
Hey everybody, I'm his co-host, Mr. Jason Alt.
Joining us, I have you know what, Jason? I was going to go out and be on theme tonight and get a Coppola wine, but I instead just went straight whiskey. I got the Rebel Yell. It's surprisingly good for under a $20 bourbon.
I'm drinking a Short's London Fog, which is an English-style brown ale brewed with Earl Grey tea, vanilla flavor, and lactose. It is hella drinkable, but Short's does a lot of really, really small batches of stuff. They're just like, well, why do 10 beers well when you can do 300 beers and 10 of them are fantastic, but we only do them for a year? I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on up there. This is so good. I love the concept of lactose in beer. It really kind of smooths a lot of it out. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know. I don't really like IPAs that much. Mm-hmm. I don't like the bitterness. So anything that adds some smoothness and maybe a little hint of sweetness. As you know, lactose is a milk-based sugar. So Prost.
Chaim. We are talking about the daughter of Francis Ford Coppola. That's one Sofia Coppola. This person, usually when we talk about filmmakers, we talk about their rise, their struggle most of the time to stardom. If ever, this person came up kind of already as cinematic royalty. So that's already a big twist on our research.
I think her struggle was very different.
Mm-hmm.
I do think she struggled, but I think her struggle was to define herself as someone other than Francis Ford Coppola's daughter.
Right.
So there's really nothing of his that really kind of appears in any of her work. She has a very distinct point of view, and her influences are very different from her father's. And I think it was difficult for her to be taken seriously as an auteur,
Mhm.
and not just like a spoiled rich kid who just kind of nepotismed her way into Hollywood. So I do think she struggled. I think it was difficult for her to establish herself as her own person.
I think that it really helped her because, I was watching some interviews with her, and she went to, she, like I said, she grew up through the ranks. Her acting debut was as a baby in Godfather 1. She acted all the way through the Godfather series, which the third one, I mean, famously, almost infamously, she just got critically ripped apart for her performance.
You haven't kissed me hello yet. Relatives always kiss.
Oh, now we're related.
I'm your little cousin.
To be fair, and that's just fucking terrible, right? Like, she was an 18-year-old girl. Her father asked her to be in this very, classic film, and she didn't want to be an actor anyways. And her performance is infamously bad, and she just got ripped apart. And I just think about,
well, she wasn't bad in The Outsiders, which was earlier than that. So it just seems maybe like she was being a little bit petulant.
oh yeah, just like, no, I don't want to be in The Godfather, Dad.
I'm gonna ruin your shitty Godfather, and he's like, no, I was gonna ruin it.
Dad?
I mean, either way, like, think about when you're, 17, 18 years old, or, I have a daughter that it's that age. It's tough to be that age anyways, but then to go out there on with millions of people watching you and just, like, eviscerate you. I mean, kudos to her for coming back from that.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe the money helped. You see a lot of people that, like, never recovered from that. Like Jake Lloyd.
Right, yeah.
He wasn't that bad. They're like, read the dialogue on this page. He's like, are you sure those are the words you want me to say? And they're like, trust us. He's like, all right. That's what I call pod racing. Everyone at school's like, you should kill yourself.
Yeah.
So none of that was his fault. And I don't think anything in Godfather 3 that sucked was her fault necessarily.
Yeah, I think there's more horror stories than success stories when it comes to child actors being successful as adult film stars. So in the fact that she not only turned it around creatively, but like you said, it got out of the shadow, I think, very successfully of her father, of a very pronounced shadow that her father placed, and not even just her father, but her mother also. Right? They're both very talented folks, Eleanor Neal, and then it just comes from that whole troupe. Like, it's not only Francis Ford Coppola is her father, but just the pedigree. It really is like a cinematic royal family. I mean, you're connected to Roman Coppola's, and then Nicolas Cage,
who did change his name because he didn't want everyone to assume nepotism,
right?
Which is something she didn't do and could have. But I think she did work hard to establish herself in other ways other than, like, hiding by changing her name.
Right.
Did you know Nick Cage wanted to go by Johnny Cage? That's where they got that name, because he liked Luke Cage, and then he liked Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. So that's like he was going to do an amalgam of Luke Cage and Johnny Blaze.
That's incredible. Only Nick Cage, man.
That's where they got the name Johnny Cage from.
That's rad.
Yeah.
And they made him after a movie star, so they probably literally made that character after Nick Cage. How did I not know that?
To an extent, yeah. He was sort of part Van Damme because he was always doing the splits and stuff like
Sure.
that. Yeah, it's just like stuff that I don't know how I know.
It's the trivia that you guys and gals show up for here on Film Hooligans.
I couldn't think of a more horrible job if I wanted to. And you have to do it.
But that one,
I'm just regurgitating the Today I Learned subreddit.
And then even with more contemporary people like Jason Schwartzman, connected to her, now ex-husband, Spike Jonze. And so there was just this surrounding of just creative juices where I think almost like you couldn't have walked out of that house without getting some kind of creative infusion. So
you could have rebelled hard though. She could have gone to trade school and learned how to be an electrician.
Yeah.
She was an 18-year-old kid, and her rebellion was like, "Oh, I'm not going to act great in the shittiest of all the Godfather movies," as opposed to like, "I'm going to go get real high on drugs all the time." And you're going to have to shut down production of a movie to come find me in the Hollywood Hills after I've been going missing for 3 weeks and spend all your money. So
yeah.
She could have rebelled a little bit harder than like, I like new wave cinema more than Apocalypse Now. Sorry, Dad.
That was her coming out of the closet, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, she could have done a lot, but she just I don't know. She never really seemed to have any scandals or anything. She didn't really seem all addicted to drugs. I think she's probably addicted to buying shoes or something like that. Something benign.
Yeah.
If anything. So it seems like she just allowed herself to benefit positively from being in a good environment in a toxic cesspool like Hollywood.
Yeah.
Which just destroys everyone.
Even her divorce was benign. Like, I don't remember hearing about her and Spike Jonze divorce. And they were like, around that time in 2000, I want to say like 2006, whenever the year Lost in Translation came out is when they got a divorce. And it was just like, they were both like young and hot filmmakers at that time. And it was just like, yeah, it was a little blip, like 2003. And, they just got a divorce and that was it. Like, they're so kind of off the radar. And that's why I think she was more interested in like fashion. She studied abroad. She interned for Chanel. She went to Cal Arts for photography. She learned that way. And those experiences really bled into her filmmaking rather than her like family experiences, because her films are anything but Francis Ford Coppola films. And it's just, cinematically, everything looks like a picture or it's, more about the fashion. But a film like Marie Antoinette, it got booed at Cannes because I think people were like, the last name's Coppola, it's a period piece. They hadn't a certain expectation for it. And she's just like, no, I just want to show really good costumes. And and she did such a good job with what she was trying to achieve that she got an Oscar for it, because the movie is, it's not even about that. It was more a commentary on youth, more of a coming of age story than trying to be factually a Marie Antoinette commentary. So
well, I mean, working with Milena Canonero, I don't know if that was something her dad hooked up or just, I mean, her being taken very seriously very early, starting with a very strong first film. I think Milena Canonero really deserved the win for that, and she's won 4 Oscars, I think.
Yeah.
Chariots of Fire, Grand Budapest Hotel, Marie Antoinette, and something called The Affair, The Necklace in 2001. So, yeah, I think that was a good pairing there. And, Marie Antoinette's a real batshit movie if you've never seen it. I didn't know what to expect either, so I really did not like it.
Right.
Because I got annoyed because it did that kind of... You remember that Heath Ledger movie, A Knight's Tale? They're like, oh, we're knights. That's Geoffrey Chaucer. Now we're going to dance to Bowie. And I'm like, fuck this movie in the ear. I just... I didn't like that anachronistic shit. I didn't like the Converse high tops and, at the Louvre. But I don't know. I get Versailles, not the Louvre. I got into it eventually.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, she's kind of a master at that, of subverting expectations. You go into, like you said, that film or something like The Beguiled, which she just and I think at this point, that came out more recently and people were kind of keen to that, so it was critically, like, the critics were more on board because they kind of already knew where she was going. They're like, oh, it's not going to be what we think it should be, another Phantom Thread or something. It's not what that was about. She wanted to make something more like a Moulin Rouge or a Knight's Tale or a, Romeo and Juliet.
I thought she was a little, maybe slightly more faithful to the source material on Beguiled than Eastwood was.
Yeah.
I realize that's a little bit of a controversial statement, but I think that movie was right in her wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think The Virgin Suicides was a great example of how women act in groups. I think she does that better than anybody else just because, well, who knew women can write women well?
Who knew?
And I think the fact that she keeps going back to Kirsten Dunst is great because she really gets the best out of someone who's a pretty average actor like Kirsten Dunst. So she really writes good parts for her, and she's not good at delivering dialogue, and she doesn't have to in a Sofia Coppola movie.
Sure.
So I think she's does her best work in Coppola films. I thought she was quite good in The Beguiled and quite good in Marie Antoinette.
And Virgin Suicides.
Obviously.
I think that she not only writes women probably like so much better than most people in Hollywood write women, but she writes men more accurately than most men write men in a way that makes men uncomfortable. I think
she just thinks of a woman and takes away reason and accountability, right?
Sure. her men are parodies of men in certain ways. Like they're either like ultra feminine, like the French king in Marie Antoinette, Jason Schwartzman's character, or Stephen Dorff's character in Somewhere, where it's just like overcompensating the masculinity, or the men are somewhere in between where they're just there to be transfixed by the women. She's really into like populist aesthetics. Like she likes when her protagonists or her people look good, dress well. She likes everything to be very aesthetically pleasing, and that's from her background.
Yeah, she said she likes when things are transfixed by beauty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the full quote there, but just just paraphrasing a little bit. Mm-hmm. The phrase "transfixed by beauty" sticks out in my mind. So I think you nailed it. There are some characters that she just writes just to be entranced, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that character doesn't have a whole lot of agency. But that's how so many men write female characters. They're just damsels. They're just plot devices,
Exactly.
And it's nothing as sexist as like fridging male characters or anything like that. Like they're not plot devices per se. They're just not very well-rounded characters, and people don't like that. But like, I don't think they realize the double standard in being upset by that. So I think she does a really good job of subverting, how uncharitable Hollywood is to a lot of female archetypal characters.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, because like think about it, when you're writing about the group of kids in high school in the Virgin Suicides, like all those guys, you have some of them that are like outwardly projecting something, but they're all like as shaken when Lux like winks at them, or they find out that one of them put their head in the oven. It's just like everyone's super unsure. Everyone's like, you could smell the prepubescent sweat in that just by watching that movie.
Well, they were the camera.
Yeah.
They were the POV for that. Like they existed to project the story from. So like they were barely had agency in that movie, but like the fact that you used such different characters, they were a little bit dynamic, and they, kind of had personalities, but at the same time, like the movie was so not about them that they didn't matter. I thought that was really good. And I mean, to an extent, that's, the source material had a lot to draw from there.
It's probably one of the most popular reoccurring things that we do on this show is talk about first efforts and it's really, and I know I've said this before, but I really struggle to find a better first effort than the Virgin Suicides. I mean, find Lick the Stars, a short film, and it's great, but I mean, her, for all intents and purposes, 1999, The Virgin Suicides is
it's her first feature. Like, that's what we judge people based on.
writing too. She wrote the thing. It's just like, wow.
Well, it's adapted from a novel, but
Sure.
she wrote it for the screen. Yeah.
I mean, Taika Waititi adapted Jojo Rabbit, but if it's a Taika Waititi film.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. It was just, I mean, that movie was just like everything. Like, I remember seeing that back then. It shook, I was shook when I saw that film. And you just expect to see, someone more apt to, that was tied to it. And she kind of said this in an interview she did when Lost in Translation was released, that she just didn't feel like, when you take the money out of it, because yes, she still has to get money from the studio to make the film and all that, but she doesn't have to struggle like a Joe Dante struggles. She has a store, like some stores in Japan, and she's just like, I went to Japan and I really got inspired by this culture, and I got inspired by this idea of a fleeting moment and expanding on that. And then I just kind of made Lost in Translation, where I think she gets a little bit more freedom to explore and to do that, because maybe her pedigree.
Yeah.
One of my
but I mean,
takes.
anyone who succeeds at art almost is either superbly lucky or has rich parents.
It's shitty to say, but
it is. But you just have to work a job to not die. To afford Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Like, people don't even go to Los Angeles to become good comedians necessarily. They just go and try to get famous. So people who are out there just doing comedy have rich parents.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively, or they have a very easy, very lucrative day job.
Yeah.
So you see that in other industries where it's like I got a lot of friends that are just trying to break into comedy now, and they're starting to feature nationally and headline regionally, and they're like, well, it's rich kids, I can't compete because I got to have a job.
Yeah.
So as much as is like, the people who do really well and consistently do really well are talented,
Mm-hmm.
but there are so many people that have the next Virgin Suicides in them and we'll never know.
Yes.
Because they work in a factory, making cardboard boxes.
Yeah, or a filmmaker has to come up through the ranks of commercials and music videos, and then by the time they actually get to have the, sit in the director's chair, they're directing Air Bud, because they got, called up, and that's, like you said, they could have had something like Virgin Suicides, and we just never know. But it's great. It's great that those type of movies, that she got to make these type of movies. We benefited for it. It's a symbiotic relationship, right? It's not just a completely parasitic thing. It's like, oh, Rich Kid made a movie. Well, Rich Kid made a great movie. Rich Kid makes a couple of great movies.
Well, people just, to take the leap to be like, I have $1,000 in my pocket from graduating high school. Let's move to LA where $1,000 will last 15 seconds. It's just, so many people, like, their car gets broken into and that's it. They got to move back to Iowa.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's almost like you can't succeed out there if you're not rich, but like, you don't succeed because you're rich.
Mm-hmm.
You have the stamina to stick with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, the money doesn't do anything except give you your best possible shot at it, but you still have to come correct.
Right. If it didn't work out, or, she really did take it to heart and it was catastrophic as far as self-esteem goes from her performance in Godfather 3, she never bounced back creatively from that. She could have, the very least, she could have fallen back into is like running the winery. It's like
she'd be a handbag designer or something like that.
Yeah.
She'd be living in Paris, and she'd have a fashion line, and she'd be fine.
yeah, and I give her more respect because she decided to do this route. It's just like she does have something unique to say as far as her filmography goes. And she doesn't have that many films because she just kind of picks and chooses, and she doesn't need to work really. So she just likes to.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit front loaded.
She makes a movie every 3 or 4 years, like that's it.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily front loaded. I just think the stuff she's making now is a little bit more conceptual. Like, it's obvious why the Virgin Suicides is good, but like we are not going to agree on whether the Bling Ring was good.
Mm-hmm. The Bling Ring, like you said, was like a Vanity Fair article, and she decided to, and like, I'm going to make a movie about this. Like, who does that? And it was a successful movie. Did I think it was executed as well to what I know her potential could have been, like a Lost in Translation? Not even in the same like planet, no. But
I think when we go to later on, when we talk about her visual style, I think I will explain why that movie's underrated.
Sure. As far as influences go, she was very much influenced by, things that she was passionate about. That's why she went to, these designer schools and photography schools. But it doesn't mean that she didn't have like, personal influences as well.
She wasn't really trying to make the same kind of movies as her father, but I think he did a good job of exposing her to all different types of cinema, stuff that he liked, and stuff that he was influenced by. I think her time spent abroad helped her a little bit too. I think she is one of the better directors that are obviously very influenced by French New Wave. So not everybody knows a lot about French New Wave. I certainly didn't before I started doing this show. We've had a couple opportunities to discuss American directors that, took cues from it. But French New Wave the plot is less important. The plot is de-emphasized. It's more of like a snapshot of like, it's important just because this is what's happening to these people now. The dialogue is not always that important, and sometimes they literally just make it up. They do a lot of jump cuts and a lot of handheld stuff, but they also do like really long takes and a lot of ambient lighting. And she mostly uses natural light whenever she can. So I think somebody that does a lot of just visual priming, de-emphasizes dialogue a little bit, and doesn't do a ton of like camera tricks, I guess, just long takes of people talking in rooms, like you said. I think you can see kind of the influences of those sort of movies. And she puts subtle nods to French New Wave. Like she had a character named Cleo in Somewhere. And I think she said Cleo de 5 à 7, Cleo 5 to 7, I think. She said that was one of her favorite movies. So I think she likes putting subtle nods to how she was influenced by French New Wave, but that's pretty far from what Francis Ford Coppola is doing. So
yeah,
I really like that she's found a style that she liked and could imitate and just sort of make her own. And I think she is one of the best show don't tell directors out there. And I think she does that a lot by knowing when to let people sit in silence and let their body language and their non-dialogue reciting acting tell the story.
I want to get back to jump cuts, because I think that is huge, and that's something that she's always used, where the dialogue sometimes is so meaningless that like a scene that I could think of is Scarlett Johansson's talking to Giovanni Ribisi in Lost in Translation. And even though Giovanni Ribisi is speaking, the camera's not on him. We're constantly on Charlotte's face. And it's not until he literally says, okay, I gotta go, or you know what I mean? It jumps back to him saying that, because that's when not only she's supposed to snap out of like what she was actually feeling, but that's when the audience was supposed to pay attention to what he was saying. And then right in mid-sentence, it cuts to another scene. And it doesn't matter if someone's talking or if there's like music, like we're in the middle of the song, it hard cuts into something completely different. Or sometimes it will be completely silent and then you're hard cut right into the middle of a loud club scene.
More than this, ooh, there's nothing.
So it's extremely jarring, but I love the way that she emphasizes what you should be focusing on, even if someone else is talking. And because traditionally it's a scene. You're supposed to, listen to what the people are saying, but no, you're supposed to realize what they're saying, or is making the person that's accepting or not accepting the information how they feel about it.
Yeah, I think we can focus a little bit on Lost in Translation just because it's not only her best movie, but I think it exemplifies all these techniques.
No question. Absolutely.
So I think one way she shows people are isolated is just having them by themselves. And the thing about a character by themselves, like, of course, this is obvious. There's no dialogue. But she doesn't do voiceovers or any, horse shit like that. I think if a character's by themselves, you're like, oh, how are they feeling? I don't know, maybe act. Having voiceovers is just, I think it's lazy.
Yeah.
Because if you have people that can, convey with their body language and, stuff like that, what they're feeling, or you can prime the viewer, because like, it's really easy to show someone's isolated by showing them at the edge of the screen. Like there's a scene in Somewhere where Steven Dorff literally just drifts out of the shot. He's on like he's sitting on an inflatable raft and he literally just drifts out of the shot. And you're like, all right. You don't realize that you're being primed to like, okay, this person's by themselves. But like there's some scenes in Lost in Translation, like when Bill Murray's swimming and he can't hear anything. I think by removing some of the senses, it sharpens the other ones. So she really primes you. It's like, I'm not going to have anybody talking so you know what to look at.
Right.
And I think she just removes distractions really well to make you focus. But she doesn't put the shit right in the center of the shot to make you focus on it. So sometimes you have to go looking for what's important, and you don't always catch it the first time.
Right.
So when you see it again, you know the movie a little better, you know what's important. But I think she does a really good job of showing you rather than telling you. And by not having a ton of dialogue in scenes when people are feeling alone and isolated, by isolating them, she forces the actors to act. And her shot composition can tell you a lot.
Yes.
In Virgin Suicides, when she wakes up in the middle of the football field, she's not in the middle of the shot.
Right.
Stuff like that. There's a lot of asymmetry to shots of people feeling isolated, and I think that's a good priming technique. And not a lot of people realize what they're seeing when that happens.
I think she got, as far as subtlety goes, I think she got better the more films she made with the nuance of it, because like going back to that shot with Kirsten Dunst, it's almost like she's beating you over the head with it. Almost, it's just like she is making you like no one is gonna miss what you're supposed to be feeling, because it starts out with the closest you could get up into Lux's face, because she's full of emotion. She just became a woman. All these things happen. Oh wait, we're gonna pan out, and she's literally the smallest thing in the middle of a giant field. Or Bill Murray, they constantly show shots in Lost in Translation of him, and then also like an empty seat next to him to be like, he's alone in a.
He's not in the middle of the shot. He's sort of to the side, because where the other person would be.
Yep.
If it's framed symmetrically for two people, but there's only one person in the shot.
Yeah.
And as much as that beats you over the head with it, when you look at it from like a film analysis eye, if you're just watching the movie, you're not going to notice that.
Right. Well, yeah, I don't know. I can only speak with the eye that I have, and it's probably similar to the eye that you have. But I just felt like some of them are just like this is auteur filmmaking 101. Like this is the baseline, and then we'll move up into something like a Yorgos Lanthimos, where it's a little bit more ambiguous, and you have to kind of draw it out, the meanings, to where this is like, this character is alone, this is how you shoot an alone scene.
Yeah, she holds your hand a lot. Like I talked about, like not having any noise in the scene, no music or dialogue to help you focus. Like I realize that's holding your hand a little bit.
Yeah,
but at the same time, no one says that about voiceover.
Sure.
Or like reading a letter or something like that. Or just someone asking someone how they're feeling. Like, I think the movie, as much as you want to complain, say it's a little bit obvious, I think a lot of people didn't get Lost in Translation when it first came out. I think people are like, what the fuck was that movie about? But the movie showed you. Yeah.
That movie is just literally one of the most, it's Lolita to some. It's like, it's so goddamn depressing, because when I watch this, and I know you and I are around the same age when this movie came out, and of course you project yourself into Scarlett Johansson, right? Because you're like, yeah, I'm a kid, or I'm this young person, I'm vibrant, I'm full of life, I'm hungry for new experiences. And then watching it again now as a 36-year-old man, you're like, fuck, I've become Bill Murray, and it's the most depressing thing. And she nailed both of those feelings. She knows exactly what it's like to be an uncertain but optimistic, doughy-eyed high school kid, and also a jaded, depressed old man. Like, that's incredible.
Well, I think she let the actors act a little bit, because there wasn't much to write for Bill Murray. It's like, all right, you do this and this happens.
She said that without Bill Murray, that wouldn't have been a movie. She wouldn't have made the movie.
They could have found somebody, certainly, but just he has a sad looking face, and that really helped. 90% of the heavy lifting was Bill Murray's naturally droopy face, and the fact that he's like a head and a half taller than every Japanese person. So they just showed him standing on a crowded elevator, a head and a half taller than everyone else, just frowning.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
He's a stranger in a strange land. That's very obvious.
Sure.
When you go back and watch it, some of the stuff, when there's no dialogue, people just, they're like, what am I looking at here? And they don't really take it all in. They're just waiting for the movie to tell you what it's about. And it doesn't, as much as the scenes prime you well, I don't think it spoon feeds the plot to you. So when you get to the end of the movie, you're like, nothing happened. I think a lot of people got mad because the movie didn't tell you what it was.
Well, I think what helps is she shot it like a travel vlog. And that lends to being like, okay, this isn't about a beginning, middle, and end. This isn't a 3-act system. This is, I'm on vacation. I've met up with this person. They've affected my life greatly, and now I have to go home.
Yeah.
You could almost say like Marie Antoinette is almost like, it's almost vlog style.
Well, somewhere definitely, because that was the same thing. It was just about, his daughter visiting him. He was just sort of drifting through life, and then his daughter visits, and then that's over.
Right.
It is a beginning, a middle, and an end, but it's not, nobody goes anywhere.
Right.
You're supposed to be comfortable. Yeah, what is it Dan Harmon always talks about, the story wheel, where someone's comfortable, then they get taken out of their comfort zone, then there's a trial, and they learn something, and they end up right back where they started. These movies don't do that. So people don't realize that they've internalized the beats of storytelling. These are people who aren't comfortable, and then something happens and they stay right where they were, and then it's over. And I think there are so many of those Joseph Campbellian story beats that they think are supposed to be there that it makes them uncomfortable to see a story just about, these just two people meet. And he says something to her, and you don't know what he says. The end.
Right. That's why, I was almost quite disappointed with the ending of Somewhere, where it's just like they almost, it was almost like it was forced structure, like at the end where he had to make that phone call to the ex-wife, just like, oh, I'm a pile of shit. And it's just like it would be more immersive if there, like you said, if there was just zero progression. This was just a couple days. This guy sucks. These people are okay, and that's just how it is, and that's life, right? It's just like, just because you focus on an asshole for a week doesn't mean that asshole's gonna turn out to be a good person at the end of it. Sometimes that's just what it is.
He realized he was stuck.
Yeah.
And that kind of got him moving.
That's her most Lanthimos-esque film. Like, that felt almost like Dogtooth when I watched that. Especially like the stripper scene. Everything's like super symmetrical, and I'm just like, wow, like she went back with that more so than like Marie Antoinette or like the Bling Ring of her kind of show don't tell styles, because she really almost to the point of like Gus Van Zanted some scenes where it just went on for so long where it was uncomfortable, where you're just like, okay, I think I get it. I think even I'm good. Like, I'm soaking in the scene, but I'm like, we're still here. And she really played with the audience's attention in that film. Her going to her wheelhouse of showing kind of scope and framing scenes well is a movie that probably my least favorite of her catalog in the Bling Ring, but everything feels like super claustrophobic and it just feels very uncomfortable and sweaty. And I think she, at least, the overall execution of the film, I didn't care for, but at least I feel like the tones and the theme she got well.
The thing about the Bling Ring that I like that was executed well, and I'm going to try to convince you that this movie is actually very good. She went with the cinematographer Harris Savides for this movie. Okay. It was his last movie. He died of brain cancer. Savides was the cinematographer on 5 Gus Van Sant movies. He did Elephant, Last Days, Milk, Restless, and Finding Forrester. He was also the cinematographer on American Gangster, Zodiac. He did the David Fincher movie, The Game, also. Like, Harris Savides has a very particular style, and they wanted to shoot this movie in a very particular way, where it was, when things were chaotic, where the kids were caught, it was very claustrophobic, and you picked up on that at the end of the movie. But in the beginning, everything was the opposite. It was very voyeuristic. Mm-hmm. She used security footage a lot of the time. Even the opening shot is a security shot. Right. You're a voyeur. You're watching this. It's similar to how it feels to read about these spoiled pieces of shit in the Vanity Fair article that inspired the movie. So Savides wanted to do a lot of shots from far away, and there's one shot in the movie that's masterful. They break into a house, and they have to leave right away. I guess they get spooked, so they're going through the house and turn the lights off. They shot it really far away, telephoto, and it's just this, like, Hollywood Hills type house, and it looks like a dollhouse when the kids are moving through. And it kept a still shot on it, and the kids are walking through the house, and they look like Barbie dolls moving through, and they're turning lights on and off and going through stuff, but they're mostly walking by windows, and I really liked that shot, and it gave you a certain voyeuristic feel to it. And then the end of the movie, when they were caught, things got real chaotic, which I thought was good too. Shooting that handheld, a lot of Dutch angles, a lot of, and then things calm down again, where everyone like steers into it, and they do their typical, oh, this is a learning experience for me. Or the mother trying to like pimp her Church of the Secret and stuff like that. Once they got a handle on it and realized they could just be spoiled pieces of shit and just buy their way out of it, everything calmed down. But when you thought there might actually be a moment where there would be some consequences, things were real chaotic. So you didn't realize you were being primed, you know, to feel a certain way. But I really thought the use of the different types of shot and the different types of camera, you know, which is like early Soderbergh when he was trying to save money, but they did this for effect. I think we lost one of the greats in Harris Savides, and I think this is you know, some of his best work. You know, and he was doing really good work, you know, up until the end. I mean, he got nominated for an Independent Spirit Award for Milk. He got nominated for a Satellite for Zodiac. He got nominated for a BAFTA for American Gangster. Like, you know, he was winning awards. Or getting nominations at least. He was recognized.
They should show Zodiac in film school for cinematographers. I mean, that's just a clinic. So.
Yeah. So I think her using him, I think he influenced a lot of her shots, and she did, you know, good shot composition starting with her first movie. If she'd had the maturity, if she made the Virgin Suicides now,
right,
I think the Bling Ring shows that like some of those shots would be phenomenal.
Sure,
this almost seemed like a second draft of Virgin Suicides in a few ways, because it's, you know, the same. Not the same type of character, but like the same age.
Right.
And they just reacted to their environment very differently. You know, instead of just being like a bunch of repressed girls bored in like 1970s Detroit, this is like the total opposite.
Right.
This is people aspiring to, you know, that lifestyle and realizing that, you know, like it was a little bit easier to attain than they thought. And, you know, also ultimately pretty empty.
Well, yeah, like you said, the Virgin Suicides, it's shot boring. Like, it looks very, it just, everything's natural lighting. You see everybody's flaw. Everyone's so normal, where this is, it looks like of the city it's shot in. And that was a perfect encapsulation of what, you know, the theme of the film is obsession with excess and celebrity, and that's how it was shot, you know, by making these kids look that way. I just felt like it was super rushed. I feel like it's choppy, but not in a good Sofia Coppola choppy way. There was no time to breathe in any of the scenes, and that might have been on purpose. That might have been, she was going for that.
But compare that to Elephant.
Yeah, I mean,
or American Gangster.
Yeah, I don't know. It just felt very rushed, and I don't know. It's just something about, I don't know what it was, but
did you want to not like it? No, because you didn't like these shitty kids.
I didn't like. I mean, I thought the performances were pretty bad. I mean, to be honest.
Well, I mean,
and I guess they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be talentless hacks, and that's why they're so, you know, obsessed with celebrities. So, I mean, she might have like just duped me, and I fell for it. But you have to enjoy the film also. So I don't know.
I mean, I think it's not as though Emma Watson doesn't know what she's doing. She's acted before.
Yeah.
You know, Katie Chang was in some stuff.
The dollhouse scene, like you said, is pretty goddamn masterful, though. I mean, there's.
I think
a lot
there were a
like
couple really good shots like that.
Yeah,
but also the claustrophobic. Like anytime they were in a closet, like a huge closet, you know, those kind of felt claustrophobic in a way that like there were just too many people jammed in there. And then like once you saw like the scale of like the opulence of, you know, what these people had, you weren't even supposed to feel bad for these celebrities that got ripped off, because it's like, oh, you know, I just had so much loose jewelry. Like they weren't locking their front doors. They didn't have security systems. They're just like, fuck it, I'm Orlando Bloom. Here's my house. Everyone knows where I live.
Lindsay Lohan's in prison with them.
Yeah, I've got a gate, but ultimately, like, I don't lock my doors, and everyone knows I'm in Paris for Fashion Week. Like,
sure.
Like at the same time, these people were begging to be ripped off, and I really liked how these kids, just by virtue of bothering, as much as these kids are shitty, they also just kind of exposed how bored these people are with their money.
Yeah.
because they just bought more shoes than they'll ever wear, and they wear them once, and then they're in their giant shoe closet that's the size of my basement, and then they get ripped off, and they're like, I guess they stole some jeans, whatever, some jewelry. As much as it's a violation, I think nobody is more comfortable with that kind of violation, if than somebody who always has a camera in their face.
Right.
So you forget to feel bad for these celebrities that get ripped off when you watch this movie, because it's not about that.
Right.
You're almost supposed to feel bad for these spoiled kids because their parents aren't doing them any favors, and because they live, around this lifestyle, and they're trying to emulate it, and they're just doing the shit dumb teenagers do when they do dumb shit, and like bragging to their friends and getting caught. You can relate to their behavior on a different scale, but they're just doing it in a different way because access, by virtue of living in Los Angeles, gives them, the opportunity to do stuff on a bigger scale. But ultimately, like, these people just didn't give a shit either. They weren't locking their doors.
Right.
They were making it very obvious when they were going to be out of town. And people don't rip them off every day.
Right.
That's the crazy thing.
Because you think just like, you think of Paris Hilton, she's going to have a moat or something. It's like, no, they just walked up and tried her door and it was open.
But Paris Hilton's not a real person. She's a star, a mortal can't approach her castle, I think they really just showed how human, but at the same time, they just seem bored with all their wealth,
Yeah.
Because they were just like, I don't even have an alarm. Just steal 20 of my watches. Who gives a shit? I got that watch for, doing a Nickelodeon show. They just gave me the watch. I don't even care.
It's more expensive
I
than
never
your
wore
house.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the kids didn't care either. He's like, here's $300,000 worth of watches. I'll give you $5,000. The dude's like, all right.
Yeah. He's like, I just want to make a deal and feel important.
Yeah, they both did.
Yeah. It felt like Bizarro Parasite. It was like the complete...
There was no downstairs. It was upstairs.
Upstairs. Yeah. It was the complete, antithesis of Parasite. Because everyone, it's all nuance and thought-provoking, and this was just like everyone's loud and stumbling.
But you didn't feel bad for anybody, and I think that was a weird thing, too. Because you're like, who's the victim here?
Right.
You could argue the kids are the victim, but, like, you don't feel bad for anybody.
And then you argue, for Parasite, you feel bad for everybody.
Yeah.
You can see everyone's side.
So I think her style lent itself to this. I think she was inspired by reading this magazine, or this Vanity Fair piece. And I think she does, she writes teenagers well, and all their weird adolescent stumbling. I think she was the right person to tell this story. And I think she did a very good job with it by just showing how empty all of it is.
Sure.
So I thought it was executed well. Maybe didn't make the most convincing case. You don't seem to have come around on it, but at least visually, I think Saviti's work on this is some of his best.
Yes,
and it was like it was also a movie that didn't really lend itself to her typical visual palette of natural lighting and muted colors.
No, it's more Marie Antoinette than Lost in Translation.
Yeah. And she was working with what she had to work with, and I think it didn't quite seem like one of her movies either. It seemed like something Soderbergh made for Netflix, But I don't necessarily think that was a knock against it.
No, that's actually quite a praise for it. Another thing, and this is kind of more of an overarching tool of what she does, send periods of quiet, or at least no dialogue, but she fills that in with soundtracks. I think that she uses a lot of bands to tell the mood. Like, you have the Strokes in Marie Antoinette, in a period piece. But that also shows, it's like, listen, stupid audience, that you're not watching a period piece. You're watching A Knight's Tale. So yeah. She, now she uses her husband's band a lot, Phoenix, to score a lot of the movies she's doing. And it's just like, So here's my knock, and I said I had a kind of I was holding a spicy take before we started. Is I feel like she is a filmmaker that's fishing with dynamite. She's just like, I need someone to score my movie, my second movie. How about My Bloody Valentine? They came out, they made like this like sacrosanct album, and then you like never heard from them again. But yeah, they're gonna score a Sofia Coppola movie. Like she works with the best people. As far as actors, and it's not easy to get Bill Murray if you're not Wes Anderson, right? It's just like she just like with all this stuff, like if you're cooking with the best ingredients in the kitchen, you're gonna make a great film even if you're not even trying to.
Yeah, but would you say that about a male director?
I would say that about Refn 100%. She's the anti-Refn because her substance is still good, but I'm saying
she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
Whereas Refn makes good movies by accident.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, you never accuse Wes Anderson of fishing with dynamite. He got Bill Murray.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not accusing you of being
wrong.
sexist. I'm just wondering.
Good.
I think you're more likely to be accusing her of nepotism than being sexist.
100%. I think no, and
so I guess when I said that, would you say that about a male director? There aren't a ton of examples of good male directors who benefited from nepotism as obviously as people are accusing her.
Yeah. Only comparison I can make is the Reitmans. But again, they both make good films. I think that the son kind of went the dad's route way more than Sofia Coppola did. But no, and again, I'm not saying that she makes bad films, but I'm saying it's like, who can make a bad film when you have everything at your disposal?
Well, lots of people have everything at their disposal. They make bad movies all the time.
Yeah.
Good directors make bad movies. Like lots of people have access to these actors she's using. And she's, arguably using Jason Schwartzman and Bill Murray and, people that have a lot of indie credibility.
Mm-hmm.
But she also gets good performances out of Kirsten Dunst. Like, who can do that? No one has ever gotten a good performance out of Kirsten Dunst ever.
She was fantastic in Interview with the Vampire.
Sam Raimi had a million times the budget as her, and Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire and Bruce Campbell of all people. But like,
how dare you?
Look at Spider-Man. She sucked on ice on that movie,
Yeah.
So it's like, was Sam Raimi fishing with dynamite when, Sony gave him $60 million to make Spider-Man? I don't know, man. So, yeah, she's taking advantage of, but also if she made 3 shitty movies, no one's going to take her phone call. Can you imagine if The Virgin Suicides and Lost in Translation just sucked?
Right.
Like, would she have access to Bill Murray? I don't know, man. Probably not. So she had to come with it also. So like, yeah, she has access to good stuff, but like, so what? You still have to do something with it.
Right.
You could, Bill Murray was in Garfield.
And it really sounds...
Was Garfield good?
Well, no.
Was A Tale of Two Kitties good, John? I don't think he was in that. Was he in that one?
I don't even know what that is.
It was a sequel to the Garfield movie. Oh. They did A Tale of Two Cities with like City Cat, Country Cat.
No, Daniel Day-Lewis replaced him for that role. I'm a cat that likes lasagna.
It's time to go to set, Mr. Day-Lewis. Call me Garfield, goddammit! Fire this page!
Where's Odie? I want him to smack me in the face.
I slept in a cat bed for 6 months.
I've been burying my own shit in the sandbox. No one told me not to. Someone clean it. Yeah.
That's not for Garfield. I've just been doing that ever since Last of the Mohicans when I had to shit outside.
Yeah. Oh, we love him. We miss you, Mr. Day-Lewis. Please go back.
Come back and do another pretentious movie.
Yeah, so we have more material. No, It sounds like I'm shitting on her, but it's just a weird place my brain went, and I don't even know if there's anything to it.
You just don't want to give her. I don't know. You don't. I don't know why you don't want to be like, oh, she's good. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know why? It's the nepotism thing.
Maybe
Bugs you.
Yeah, but it's
She could. Why didn't she go by Sophia Cage?
Ironically, it's kind of the same way I feel about Spike Jonze from a different angle, where it's just like you're the jackass guy, but you can make really good films. You know, I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's like on face value, I didn't take a lot of Spike Jonze films seriously until you sit down and you watch it. You're just like, Jesus, like why is he doing Jackass? And then like,
what's more like he had all that credibility, and he's, of the like, that scene, and he sort of was just like skateboarding people like me. Why don't you give me money to make a movie because you like me? And
right.
People just liked him, so they just let him do stuff.
Yeah,
he got to fish with dynamite because of who he was as a personality versus who his father was. But it's the same shit,
Yeah.
Spike Jonze got a lot of leeway real early, and he didn't necessarily deserve it on the basis of like he's a really good skateboarding photojournalist and made some cool music videos. So I don't know, man. Like I think everybody who's really successful had to be lucky and fortunate and talented. Otherwise, they'd be making a couple forgettable movies, or they'd still be in film school, or who knows what, man. You have to be lucky. And having a famous father with connections is one way to be lucky. Happening to win a judge's award at Sundance is another way to be lucky. A couple votes another way, and maybe we never would have seen Reservoir Dogs. So like you don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm not holding anything against her I wouldn't hold against somebody else in a similar circumstance. Like
Sure.
a lot of people benefit from nepotism. So I think if she was making the same movies her father is, that would be one thing. But she's done so much to establish herself as having a unique voice and perspective. And even some of the stuff you said in this episode, that she writes teenagers and she writes old men and young women equally well.
Yeah.
I think, the dynamics she does between groups of women, I think she does. Like, we haven't talked about this movie very much, but The Beguiled, which was a remake of a Clint Eastwood movie, and it makes the Clint Eastwood movie look like a piece of shit, frankly.
Oh,
because she does so well with the dynamics between women. And it's really interesting. There's like a hard I don't want to spoil the movie too much, but basically there's like a Lord of the Flies moment at the end of the movie where they go right back to being how they were before this guy showed up. Real briefly, post Civil War, Union soldier shows up at a girls' school, and he's wounded. They take care of him. There's some tumult, and he's gone at the end. And the women really turn on each other just with the presence of this one male character. It's really interesting how he tears the group apart just by virtue of needing their help and just being there. And then when he's gone, they immediately go right back to how they were before. It's like in Lord of the Flies when the boat shows up and they go right back to being little pea pants children.
Right. Yeah.
After they're hunting each other with spears. It was really interesting, and I think she did a much better job of writing. She adapted. She got the screenplay credit, so she adapted the novel. So she did a really good job of writing these characters in a way that, like, a male director like Clint Eastwood did not do as good a job.
Yeah.
Did Eastwood direct Beguiled? He was in it.
Yeah, no,
like,
he directed it. Yes.
Okay, I just assumed, and now I'm like, I'm gonna look like an idiot on my own podcast.
Oh no, it was Don Siegel. Sorry.
See,
We are idiots.
we just assumed, because I don't take male directors seriously. I'm sexist like that.
Yeah. It would have been a lot more racist if it was Clint Eastwood directing it.
Probably.
Get off my lawn. It's probably just my own funk, and but I feel like she made one of my top 5 favorite films of all time. And as hard as I try to supplant it with anything else.
Oh,
that's
La
come out-
Traviata. Yeah, mine too.
Exactly. In Lost in Translation, she set this tone and this bar for me personally that if it's not of that level because she's produced that, it's like, I don't know. I do find enjoyment in her newer films like The Beguiled. There is definitely enjoyment in Bling Ring, and Somewhere, even in Marie Antoinette, if you're watching it with the right lens. But it's just like she just nailed everything, and not to say, and Virgin Suicides is a masterpiece by its own. But Lost in Translation is, and probably will always be, in my top 5 films of all time. I mean, it's in the same level as like, Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. It's just like the way that she just nailed that film from all aspects. And I mean, I could watch that as a teenager all the way to probably my deathbed and still get affected by it in some way. And we watch a lot of movies. I watch a lot of movies. It's just like the fact that I still feel something like that means something, and not like that's not a lot of filmmakers have done that.
To be sad people alone in rooms.
That's just me.
Like, if she made another movie exactly like it, not only would it not be as good, Lost in Translation wouldn't be as good.
Sure, yeah.
That's when Key and Peele kept doing the sketch with the substitute teacher.
Yeah.
Or the East-West Bowl. Yeah. They do a third one. You're like, all right, the first one's less funny now. You did it.
Yeah.
Do you really want another Lost in Translation? I don't know, man.
No, I don't. And that, like I said, it's probably just a me thing.
You can't hold, I don't know. You can't hold the later stuff against it for not being that. I don't know. She's got a new one coming out.
On the Rocks.
On the Rocks with Rashida Jones and Bill Murray, who were in the very Murray Christmas, which we didn't talk much about just because it was not really what she normally does, but it was very enjoyable.
I'm excited. Any time that she comes out with anything, I'm going to be there. And like you said, Bill Murray, Rashida Jones, cast really lines up to be something special. It's the quick synopsis on it is a young mother who reconnects with her larger-than-life Playboy father on an adventure through New York. So, I don't know. Sounds like a Jarmusch film.
I mean, kind of. She does. She doesn't get credit for her soundtrack work the way Jarmusch does, but
yeah,
her music has always been on point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't appreciate the Strokes in Marie Antoinette. That was kind of what I hated about it, but like, I just have to accept that that's the movie she made.
Right.
But I think I was just like, oh, another fucking Knight's Tale. I don't don't care for this. I mean, Marie Antoinette was very polarizing as a film, but she made something stylistically that she wanted to make. And whatever, man. It didn't kill her career, obviously, so...
No, she gave her designer a box of macaroons and said, "This is your color palette." Like, and it worked.
Well, this is someone who had won 2 Oscars already. So
yeah, I mean, there's a reason why we picked Sofia Coppola probably over her father. Her films are just really enjoyable.
I found her work more interesting.
Yep,
personally. We sound like douches saying that, like, oh, we don't want to say that the popular movie about explosions are good. I don't know, man.
Whatever, it's our show. If you don't like it, go away. But stay. And thanks for staying. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Yeah. This was our Sofia Coppola episode. Appreciate everyone jumping on with us. But yeah, please go ahead and hit that like button downstairs. If you're listening to this in podcast form, go ahead and give us some apples or oranges or, pats on the back or on the crotch, whatever you feel, whatever your kink is, leave that for us. And we'll be appreciative because it's nice. So we're on Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. If you want to talk to us about movies, you could do so on our Twitter, film_hooligans. You could talk to me, Jon Dunning, at OrzovDunn. Jason, we did it. We did another one. Where can everyone
We did
find you?
another episode. I'm at Jason E. Alt on the Twitter. And I have a pin post at the top of my profile that Shows all the other places I'm available on the internet if you are interested in finding my other work.
Excellent. Until next time, closing, because we don't have a close. I'll just hit the stop button.
See you at the movies.